Hello and welcome to the Business Spotlight series. I'm your host Anu Khanna, and today I'm joined by the dashing Manoj Mistry. Manoj, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Would you like to kick us off with a brief background about IBOS and about yourself?
Sure, no problem. Hi, I'm Manoj Mistry. I'm the Managing Director and Head of IBOS Association Limited. We are a company that has been established for the last 30 years and domiciled here in the UK. We provide services to global banks and their customers who are looking to go cross-border and allowing those companies to grow organically through our network.
Oh, wow, fantastic. And also, little chat we had prior, you have
Hmm.
traveled so widely. You've lived in different countries, in Hong
Correct.
Kong, Singapore,
Mhm.
Canada. So do share with our audience, anyone, who's new to the countries. It's quite remarkable, the diversity you've gone through. Tell us more about that.
Sure, no problem. Obviously, born and bred in the UK, and proud to be what I would call British, but in our terms, I'm a Brindian in some short way. But yes, I grew up here in the UK. I studied here in the UK, and my first job obviously was working for one of the largest banks here in the UK, which is NatWest RBS. I worked ground up basically. I found that. Getting the practical experience and moving into the corporate space was the best way possible for me. Through obviously connections and relationships that I had built through my time at the bank, I always had a passion of working abroad. And parts of my family trips to different parts of the world, one was Canada, which we frequented too because we had a lot of family over there. I fell in love with the country the first time I went, and I was only probably about 9 years old at the time. I always said that a transition of moving away from the UK was something that I wanted to do, and I fulfilled that at the age of 25. I moved to Canada. I married obviously a Canadian. Jokingly, that's my green card. But in terms of getting the opportunity to move to a country that obviously was fulfilling in terms of allowing young families to move, allowing them to grow and foster their ability to create a professional career and a lifestyle as well. Um, During the time of living in Canada, my network grew. I worked for a very large Canadian bank that allowed me to grow in my network and my abilities to move forward, moving up the managerial ranks. And once getting noticed, headhunters notice you as well. So I was headhunted away to another bank in Canada. Um, but it didn't stop there. I loved the Canadian economy. I loved the Canadian people, but I didn't like the winters. I didn't like the snow. The cold just didn't jive with me. So an opportunity came for me to move to Singapore with one of the Canadian banks, and that was my what I would call my second element of risk. And risk meaning allowing me to think about I've done it once, I can do it again, so why not? So we packed our bags and moved to Singapore. Now, that was probably one of the best moves I think I ever made. One for climate, secondly, it's sunny all year round. But also in terms of diversity, it allowed me and my family to allow us to see another part of the world, but also the multicultural factors of what Singapore brings. It does force integration, but it also forces innovation as well in people. Singapore as a state island is obviously very small. There's only so many times you can get your nails done, get your hair done, and so forth. So it's hard, but what is easy is you can always be in transit and go to Thailand for the weekend or so forth. So from a professional standpoint, Singapore was extremely rewarding because it allowed us to grow in ourselves, not just as an individual, but as a family as well. Um, and from there, moving to Hong Kong gave us a second step of, moving to North Asia, different cultures. Again, the third risk that comes into play, taking another risk because we've done it before to do it again. So I think, for those that are listening to this, I think it's also about moving out of your comfort zone and allowing you to know that things are possible. And when they become possible, your mindset changes and your ability to know that the can do is very, very much possible as well.
Wow, what a journey. So UK, Canada, Singapore, Hong Kong, all very diverse, all very cultured,
Correct.
enriching countries. What a great journey. Thank you for
Mm,
sharing that, Manoj.
thank you.
And you talked about comfort zone. So for our audience listening out there who are now
Hmm.
very inspired by your journey, but what's, stopping people from comfort zone sometimes is fear, fear of the unknown,
Hmm.
uncertainty. What will your advice be to someone who wants to step out of the comfort zone
Hmm.
but has fear that's holding them back?
Yeah, I think there's different factors of fears that come into play. If you are part of a big family that obviously you're leaving behind, I think that is also a very big draw to allowing you to say, is this the right move for me? We've seen over a number of decades as well that families have moved. Australia, New Zealand has been a pocket of moving away from the UK. It's a very, very long journey to make, 25, 26 hours away from the UK. Um, I think that the only way people can remove those fears is to know that um, there's always something better out there, but the grass is always not always green as well. It's about what you make of it as well. It's allowing you to build your network, allowing you to have time for yourself, and not obviously sometimes yes dealing with some of the more related family dramas that you may have back at home that you can then take away and say, you know what, within the cluster of my family, I can now start to grow within that. So, but also in terms of the exchange of business cards and network, I think is very, very key. It's
Yeah.
allowing you to grow outside of that and then have different experiences, have your family, and if you are with the family, have your children, allow them to meet with families from different parts of the world who are probably transitioning there as well. So I think that is a very important. But one of the risks that also occur is that when you go to another location, a lot of the international kids are sort of short term as well because they may be rotating around. So you don't sometimes make friends for life. So for children, it's also a fear of transition, of moving to the unknown, that they're also, very familiar with their surroundings today. Um, but my advice and my examples of living in Singapore, it's sunny all day. The kids come back from school, they can jump in the pool, and have some fun time. Where in different climates where you don't have that opportunity, it becomes very difficult. So you can balance your life that way in different ways, depending on where you decide to go.
Yes, no, thank you. And I totally agree with you. I think children are the biggest beneficiaries when you're moving
Mm.
across countries. So when you moved across countries, Manoj, were you always moving with the bank, as in you had a secured job? So although it's stepping out of comfort zone, but there's comfort in knowing, you know,
Yes.
this the financial factor, the security there's there.
Well, I think the if I take phase one of my move away from the UK to Canada, that was at my own risk because although I had the connections in Canada, we deal with banks in Canada that have reciprocal relationships. It wasn't as if I had a guaranteed job. So I had to take the risk of one, getting my visa first, and then obviously connecting with the people that I knew in Canada, allowing me to potentially move into my first job. And, you know, taking a significant risk around your salary, which means taking a significant cut as well, because salary scales in the UK to Canada were very different at that time, and probably still are. But it's the risk I was willing to take. One, because obviously it allowed me to think around living in another country and making a difference in terms of my own personal development as well. So there are there were reservations at first, and once you overcome those, I think it becomes a lot easier for you to make new friends, to make new contacts, um, to have the ability to even travel around a country as big as Canada. When you start to move up the career chain and allowing you to see different parts of Canada, which are extremely beautiful as well.
Yes. So if you compare your move when you completely stepped out of your comfort zone, as in your
Mm.
language, you say you took a risk moving to
Hmm.
Canada,
Hmm.
salary cut or salary, variances, compared to when you moved to Singapore and Hong Kong, which was through
Mm.
the banks.
Hmm.
So what was for you the key difference in having a little bit of comfort factor versus no comfort factor at all?
Yeah, I think the surety of, as we know, Asia is not a cheap jurisdiction to live in. It requires you to have the right type of balance in terms of, income, lifestyle, and the ability to make sure that yes, it's affordable as well. So all those factors come into it as well. So that risk was a lot easier to manage because we knew that was a guaranteed insurance. Me moving to Canada was not guaranteed insurance.
Mm,
Me then taking the next steps, and the word of the day being expat. When you become an expat, you become an expat with a lot of gratuities around what that expat means, basically.
mm.
So it allows you to have disposable income. It allows you to have holidays. It allows you to do things by having nice dinners, and other things like a car and so forth. And as you know, in Singapore, it's a luxury to have a car as well. You have to buy the right to have a car there. So for us, it was not that hard. All we had to do was make sure that climatizing to a new environment is what we were ready to do, basically, and having young children it's also about allowing them to have the right mental space to say that we've left here, we're now here, and allowing them to manage and transition into a new country as well.
Yes, totally. So what would your advice be to the audience who's listening who don't have the luxury of the expat status or a company or a bank that can move them, but they
Yeah.
still want to have that adventure and do
Hmm.
want to expand their comfort zone? What will be your advice to them, Manoj?
My advice is based on my phase one is don't be afraid to take the risk. Because if you get too comfortable in what you're doing today, and this really goes to some of the younger generation as well, is knowing that you still have time on your hands. When you get to a certain age, you may not have time on your hands with your other commitments. So if you do have time on your hands, allow yourself to think openly about those risks as well. So um, I think in the area of our transition of growing up, it was harder to travel. But today, kids today will easily get on a plane and go many places. But most go for holidays and so forth. But think beyond that. Think about what the opportunity is as well outside of your comfort zone. So I think that's a very important lesson for people to. And one thing that to test the waters, go and visit, go and see what it's like
Mm.
there first. Do a lot of research. Google is your best friend. You can get a lot of stuff online, a lot of information online. But I also think that if you have the ability to do some reconnaissance first, go and see the country and see what the values are. Does it fit within your value system as well? And if it does, then you're good to go.
Yeah, no, fantastic, Manoj. Thank you for those golden nuggets. I'm sure our audience have benefited a lot and willing to now or more ready to step out of that comfort zone. So I'd
Mhm.
like to thank you, and also on behalf of our audience, for thank you for joining us today, Manoj.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.